my 42-year-old brother, who still lives with our parents, who, how do I say this, has no life goals. It's simply because he was coddled growing up. They protected him, they enabled him, and it doesn't really help the fact that my parents are super, super rich. I'm not talking like billionaire status, but I'm talking about they could quit right now and never have to work a day again. They buy him everything. His clothing, his allowance. Yeah, he's 42, still getting an allowance. But something about it just makes me so mad. See, I was completely opposite. Yeah, they paid for my college, but I did everything on my own. And now I own a very successful burrito spot. In fact, I've grown it to 11 spots in the Texas area. I'm not going to tell the name of the spot because obviously my identity would be revealed, but I just need your help. How do I get my parents to stop enabling my brother and make him work hard? Well, the reason I'm really posting this is because Thanksgiving happened, and we absolutely had a meltdown. He would not stop flirting with my wife, telling me how beautiful she is, how she settled for me because of my money and I lost it. I told him everything I think about him, how I think he's a loser, and I just kept going until my dad said enough and essentially kicked me out of the house. And I'm just wondering, was I in the wrong? I need you guys to get the full scoop of the story, so here it is. I'm Kendall, 38 years of age, and I own a chain of burrito restaurants across Texas. I know Kendall sounds like a weird name for a guy, but that's what my parents named me. I did not inherit this business. I built it from absolutely nothing with my childhood best friend Everett. We started with one location in a strip mall, working 18-hour shifts, sleeping in the back office some nights because we could not afford to go home and come back for the early prep shift. It took years of risk and failure, maxing out credit cards, and genuine suffering before we turned profitable. But now we have 11 locations and we're planning 3 more. I'm proud of what we've accomplished, but apparently that pride makes me some elitist monster in my family's eyes. My parents, Celine and Evan, yeah, I call them by their first name, they're wealthy, okay? Not like a billionaire or even close, but comfortable enough that money was never concerned growing up. We had a nice house, good schools, family vacations 3 to 4 times a year. They paid for my college, which I'm genuinely grateful for, and I'm not spoiled, okay? I might be spoiled, but I'm not a brat about it. I also worked part-time throughout because I wanted to contribute and not just coast. But my younger brother, Bryce, who's 42 now, by the way, had the exact same opportunities that I did. Yeah, same things. The exact same financial support, the same educational access, the same comfortable launching pad into adulthood. The difference is that Bryce never launched. He's still living in our childhood home, sleeping in the same bedroom he had in high school with the same posters on the wall and the same twin bed. He's been there for over 2 decades now, and my parents have enabled every single moment of it. Growing up, Bryce was always labeled the sensitive one. See, if he struggled with homework, my mother would do it for him. If he didn't want to do chores, my dad would say he needed rest, and if he quit a sport or activity after 2 weeks, they would praise him for trying. Meanwhile, I was held to actual standards, not harsh ones, just, normal expectations that you finish when you start and contribute to the household. I did not resent it at all at the time. I just thought that's just how families worked. But looking back, I can see how the different treatment shaped us into completely different adults. Bryce had never once held a steady job for more than a few months even. He would just go about drifting between interests and hobbies, and just each one briefly consuming his attention before he decides it's not for him too much. It's not for him. Too much work, or just not appreciative enough. See, he tried to be many things: a photographer, a personal trainer, a day trader, a podcast host. I would say the most recent, he claimed he was working on a novel, though I've never even seen a single page. My mother, She still goes for him, cooks all his meals, does his laundry, cleans his room. My dad pays his car insurance. I mean, it's crazy. His phone bill gives him spending money. He's a fully grown man living like a teenager in their house. And they've created a situation where he has absolutely no incentive to ever change. So yeah, the worst part of it is absolutely the drinking. Oh, Bryce, he drinks heavily and has for years. Not socially, not casually. Oh no, he drinks to obliteration. Every dollar my parents give him seems to go straight to the booze. I've tried talking to him about it, gently suggesting therapy or rehab, and he responds like I've insulted his entire existence. He says he drinks because life has not given him opportunities, because nobody understands his struggles, because people like me make him feel worthless just by existing. And that's when things get really complicated. Because as my business has grown, Bryce's bitterness towards me has intensified exponentially. When Everett and I first opened our restaurant, Bryce mocked it relentlessly. He called burritos peasant food and said I was wasting my potential on something so beneath our family status. When we started turning a profit, his mockery turned to resentment. When we opened up the second location, he stopped speaking to me for months. By the time we had 5 locations, he started making comments about how I would forget where I came from, how success had turned me into an elitist who looked down on normal people. I've tried so hard to maintain a relationship. I mean, I visit the family home regularly, always hoping things might improve, and every visit is the worst than the last. Bryce seems to regress further into himself each time I see him. He stays in his room until noon or later, emerges looking disheveled and hungover, and makes passive-aggressive comments about my clothes or my car or my wife, then retreats back to his cave with another bottle. Speaking of my wife, I married Mira 3 years ago. She's genuinely the best thing that's ever happened to me. She's elegant, grounded, supportive, and the patience of a saint for putting up with my dysfunctional family dynamic. Bryce has hated her from the moment we got engaged. He never says it directly, but the implication is always there, that I married Myra to level up socially, that she's some kind of trophy I used to prove my superiority, that our relationship is just me rubbing my success in his face. It's delusional, it's hurtful, but my parents excuse it as Bryce being insecure and struggling with seeing me happy. The money request started about 2 years ago. At first it was small, like, oh, could I spot him $100 for a car repair? Could I loan him money for a certificate? Of course, because he wants to take it. I helped a few times before I realized there was a pattern. The car never got repaired, the course was never taken, the money went to alcohol. When I started saying no and suggesting that he gets a job or seek help instead, he accused me of just hating family and abandoning him. My mother would call me crying, saying I was being cold and cruel to my struggling brother. My dad would give me lectures about forgetting where I came from and getting too big for my britches. I discovered my mother was secretly slipping Bryce money behind everybody's back, completely undermining any attempt to help him face consequences. My younger sister Autumn told me privately that she felt trapped between us, that she could see both sides but didn't know how to fix it. I just tried explaining boundaries to my parents. You know, that giving Bryce everything he wants is not helping him, it's actually starting to destroy him. But you know what they told me? They told me I did not understand compassion, that I've become heartless since getting wealthy. So, Bryce started stalking my business social media accounts. Oh yeah, screenshotting posts about new locations or awards that we won, using them as evidence that I was hoarding money that I should be sharing with family. He genuinely believes I owe him financial support because my parents helped pay for my college, completely ignoring that they did the exact same thing for him, and he chose to drop out after 1 semester. You know, what this points to be is... he hears it as an attack rather than facts. I mean, come on. The comments about Mira got worse. He simply said that she married me for the money, that she would leave me once the business fails, that I've gotten lucky with her because she was way out of my league, and my mother would hush him weekly but never actually defend Mira or make him stop. My father just avoided the conflict entirely, changing the subject whenever things get tense. I started distancing myself, visiting less frequently, and making excuses to skip family dinners. It was the only way to protect my peace from the marriage. I seriously considered skipping Thanksgiving this year. I'd had enough of the tension, the passive-aggressiveness, the way every family gathering just left me feeling drained of energy and angry. But Mira convinced me we should go. That maintaining family peace is important and that maybe things would be different, so I reluctantly agreed, though I regretted it the moment we pulled into my parents' driveway. Bryce was already drunk as a skunk. It was terrible, right off the rip. It's, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, not tipsy, visibly, obviously intoxicated. So he greeted us with this exaggerated enthusiasm that felt performative and uncomfortable, and I noticed immediately how his attention was focused on Mira. He complimented her outfit, her hair, her perfume, lingering on details in a way that made my skin crawl. Mira just stayed polite, but I could see the discomfort. Dinner prep was chaotic. Bryce stumbled around the kitchen, refilling his glass every 10 minutes, bragging loudly about accomplishments that don't exist. He claimed he was in talks with investors about a business opportunity, that he's been offered a management position he was considering, that he could have done even more than me if he had, the same support. I stayed quiet, determined not to escalate anything, just trying to get through the meal without an incident for once, so we sat down to eat, and that's when everything just exploded. Bryce kept complimenting Mira through the dinner. Her smile, her laugh, how beautiful she is. At first it seemed like awkward drunken rambling, but then he made a comment about how lucky I was that she settled for me. The table went silent and my mother gasped. My dad stared at his plate, looking at the Thanksgiving dry turkey. Autumn looked horrified. Mira's face went pale, and then Bryce, emboldened by the alcohol and the attention, implied that Mira had married the wrong brother, that if she met him first things would be different, that I might have money but he had other qualities women actually want. These words just hung in the air, like they were stuck, like poison. So I demanded, at this point, that he show some respect. My voice was shaking, but it was obviously controlled, and Bryce would laugh it off. Called me uptight, said that I could not take a joke. Something inside me just snapped. I called him exactly what he is, a freeloading entitled bum who's wasted every opportunity he's ever been given and blames everybody else for his failures, and I told him he spent 20 years living off of our parents, like a parasite while accomplishing absolutely nothing, and that hitting on my wife at Thanksgiving dinner was a new low even for him. Yep, the room erupted. Bryce screamed that I'd abandoned the family to chase money, that I thought I was better than everyone, that I turned into exactly the kind of person I used to despise. I shot back that I built everything I have myself, that I don't owe him anything, that his life is his own responsibility, and my mother jumped in defending Bryce, saying he was just insecure and didn't mean it, and I told her she would create his insecurity by coddling him his entire life, by shielding him from every consequence and responsibility until he became this. My dad yelled that I need to stop attacking the family, and Autumn tried to calm everybody down but could not get a word in over the shouting. Bryce accused me of turning Mira against him, as if she needed any help seeing how inappropriate he was being. So Mira stood up for herself, stating clearly that Bryce had been wildly inappropriate and made her extremely uncomfortable. My mother told, Mira, she misunderstood because Bryce was just a little drunk. I said that does not excuse his harassment, and at this point my mother accused me of blowing things out of proportion, of making drama where they didn't need to be any. Bryce stormed out of the dining room and slammed the door so hard the whole house shook. Yeah, it was bad. I thought maybe the severity of what happened would create some clarity, some acknowledgement that Bryce had crossed the line, but instead, my mother turned on Myra and me and demanded we apologize. To Bryce for upsetting him, for making him feel attacked in his own home, but I refused. I said Bryce needs to be held accountable for his behavior, that apologizing would just reinforce that he can do whatever he wants without a consequence. My dad warned me that if I could not respect the family, there would be consequences. I asked if they considered enabling Bryce's alcoholism and harassment respect. My mom starts to cry, saying she would not let the family fall apart, so I told her the family already fell apart years ago when they chose enabling Bryce over helping him grow into a functional adult. That every dollar they give him, every excuse they make, every boundary they refuse to set has destroyed him piece by piece. That their love has become poison because it has nothing of him and gives him everything. My dad got angry then, like really angry, and he said if I did not apologize to Bryce and the family for my outburst, I would be removed from the will. Just like that, threatening to disinherit me because I would not say sorry for defending my wife from my drunken brother's inappropriate advances. The financial threat was meant to control me, to force compliance, to make me feel in line of some sort, like I was still a child that they could manipulate with allowance money. I looked at my wife, she looked at me, and we stood up and walked out without another word. The drive home was silent except for the sound of her crying, quietly in the passenger seat, my little passenger princess. I felt numb and furious and heartbroken all at once. Days passed without contact, and my parents didn't even call to check on us or acknowledge what happened or if we got home safely. Bryce started posting all these cryptic messages on social. I mean, that's what he's good for. About snakes in the family, people who forget loyalty, how success changes people into monsters. My mother sent passive-aggressive text about fixing this, about how families work through problems and about choosing love over pride. I didn't respond. I mean, I couldn't. There was nothing to fix because they refused to acknowledge the actual problem. Autumn called me privately and apologized for the chaos, and she admitted what I'd always suspected, that Bryce has been consumed by jealousy over my success for years, that my parents have known and chose to coddle him anyways. Then she told me something that made everything even worse. My parents had secretly rewritten portions of the will years ago, likely shifting more inheritance to Bryce because they worried about what would happen to him without their support. The revelation should not be surprising, but it was. They planned this, his independence. They tried to cement the inheritance around it, making sure he would never have to face reality even after they were gone. And they've done it in secrecy, probably knowing I would object to funding his dysfunction from beyond the grave. My business partner, Everett, noticed I was emotionally destroyed over the last week, and I confided everything, the harassment, the threats, the will, the years of enabling, and he listened, and then said something that stuck with me, that I could not fix a family that refused to fix itself. That I'd drowned, essentially trying to save somebody who would not grab a life preserve. Mira told me we needed to break generational cycles, that we couldn't let this toxicity infect our future. We've been talking about having children, and the thought of exposing them to this dysfunction made the decision easy. Well, my mom, she sent one final message demanding that I repair the bond, framing it as my responsibility to fix what Bryce had broken. My dad sends another warning about the will, making it clear this was my choice. Comply or lose my inheritance, and they genuinely believed the threat of money would bring me back in line when I literally own a successful chain of burrito stores. That I would value their wealth over my dignity and my wife's safety. We're already financially secure. They don't understand I've built a life of my own. I don't need their darn money. I never did. What I needed was a family that respected boundaries, held people accountable, and did not excuse my brother. His abuse and his tears and his excuses. What I needed was parents who loved me enough to see that threatening their son for protecting his wife was insane. So, I made the decision to go no contact indefinitely. I blocked my parents' numbers, unfollowed their social media, and removed myself from the family group chat. It felt like amputating a limb, painful and traumatic, but necessary to save the rest of the body. Bryce sent one final drunken message calling me a fraud, saying I'd always been a pretender, that everybody could see through my success, and, to the scared little boy underneath. I blocked him without responding, and there was nothing to say. He'd already decided who I was in his mind, and no amount of truth would change the narrative. Autumn stayed in contact, and I appreciated that. She understood my position, even though she could not fully extricate herself yet. She's younger, still financially dependent and tied to my parents in ways I'm not. I told her I would be here when she was ready, that she did not have to choose sides, and that I just needed space from the toxicity. The hardest part is the grief. I'm grieving the family I thought I had, the parents I believed would eventually see reason, and the brother I hoped might one day get help and heal. I'm grieving holidays and traditions and the fantasy that love alone could fix deep dysfunction. I'm grieving the inheritance I'll never receive, not because of the money, but because it represents their final rejection. Choosing Bryce's comfortable stagnation over my painful growth, but I'm still also building something new. Myra and I are expanding the business, planning for a future, creating the life we've earned through actual work and sacrifice, and we're talking seriously about children. Oh yeah, about what kind of family we want to create, about breaking the cycles that damaged me. My parents probably think I'll come crawling back eventually, that I'll, soften with time, that I'll realize family is more important than pride, but they don't understand this isn't about that. It's about survival. It's about refusing to teach my future children that love means accepting abuse, that family means sacrificing yourself to enable someone else's destruction. So you know what? Maybe I am the a-hole. Part of me thinks I should have been more patient, more understanding, more willing to absorb Bryce's behavior for the sake of keeping everybody together. But most of me knows that patience became complicity somewhere along the way. That understanding became enabling, that my willingness to absorb abuse was exactly what my parents counted on to maintain their comfortable denial. So I walked away. I chose my wife, I chose peace, my future over the wreckage of my past. I chose the family I'm building over the family that's broken. And even though it hurts every single day, even though I sometimes wake up wanting to call my mom or give Bryce one more chance, I know it was the only choice I could make and still live with myself. The story doesn't have a happy ending. There's no reconciliation on the horizon. No moment of clarity where my parents realized their mistakes. No redemption arc for old Brycey. There's just me, moving forward, carrying the weight of everything I lost and everything I chose to save. That's going to be it for me. That's going to have to be enough. Thank you for everybody that listened. I don't think I'll be updating again, unless something dramatic happens. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention my brother can't even drive because he has 5 DUIs. Very interesting story. In my opinion, I have to say OP is clearly not the a-hole. But there's 2 comments I would like to check out. The first one does not agree with OP at all. It says, honestly, OP, I think you're completely overreacting and you're destroying your family over what amounts to a guy that's been drinking. Making an inappropriate comment, yeah. What Bryce said was wrong, but you turned it into a nuclear explosion when you could have pulled him aside and told him to go sleep it off and addressed it the next day when everybody was sober. Instead, you chose violence, verbal violence, and attacked a man who's clearly struggling with mental health and addiction issues at a family dinner, Thanksgiving, where he should have felt safe. Your parents did not threaten to disown you out of nowhere and disinherit you as well. They did it because you humiliated your brother in front of the entire extended family. And then refused to even consider that maybe, just maybe, you escalated things beyond what was necessary. You keep painting yourself as the self-made success story, and Bryce is the failure. But have you ever considered that your constant success and the way you probably just lorded it over him his entire adult life contributed to his struggles? Have you thought of that? The fact that you can't even apologize for losing your temper shows how prideful and stubborn you are. Family is supposed to forgive. OP, family is supposed to work through hard times together, not abandon each other the second things get a little bit uncomfortable. Your parents are trying to hold the family together, and you're ripping it apart because you can't handle one drunken comment. I hope that business of yours keeps you warm at night when you're old and alone with no family left because you burned every single bridge over your ego. Guys, I don't agree with that comment at all, but let me know what you think about it down below. I don't think it was just one comment that set OP off. It was years and years and years of it. OP can see his brother as taking advantage of his parents who are also enablers. Here's comment 2 that does agree with OP. It says this. Oh, please. Don't listen to these people saying you overreacted because you absolutely did not. And I'm furious on your behalf just reading it. Your brother was doing some wild things to your wife at the family dinner. That's not just comments while drinking. That's weird behavior that made your wife feel literally unsafe in what should have been a welcoming environment. You even said yourself she was crying on the way home. The fact that your parents just immediately jumped to defend him and demanded you apologize shows exactly how deep the dysfunction runs in your family. They've spent 42 years creating this monster by excusing every terrible thing that he does. And now they're threatening to punish you for refusing to participate in the enabling of him. This isn't about one comment at Thanksgiving. This is about decades of you being the responsible one, the achievable one, the one who actually built something while Bryce got endless chances and infinite excuses for accomplishing nothing. Now, we get it. If he failed trying, that's okay. Some people fail, get back up on the horse and try, but that's not what he did. It's not what he did. And the fact that they've already rewritten the will to give him more proves that they've been planning to enable his dependence forever. You made the right choice walking away, and I'm so proud of you for choosing your wife and your future over a family that clearly does not respect you at all. Going no contact is hard, but it's the only way to break these toxic cycles and protect yourself from people who will always choose the weakest link over the strongest one. So please, stay strong, OP. Guys, I have to totally agree with that comment. I mean, I think it was spot on. But if you don't agree with me, that's totally fine. I love hearing the opinions of others. So drop a comment down below in the comment section. Let's talk about it. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day. And of course, remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.